Good afternoon and a very warm welcome indeed to today's iOB business webinar. It's an absolute pleasure to have you on here. My name is Ben and I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business. I'll be the one taking you through today's webinar presentation. All right, so just a little bit before we get kicked off, whilst we're waiting for the 2 o'clock mark, welcome to those of you that are joining us now. So as we go throughout today's presentation, we're going to cover 3 core topics. Now, throughout each of the 3 core topics, we're going to take a brief pause in between each one to give you a chance to jot down any notes that you wish to take and indeed ask away with any questions. So that brings me nicely on to the question segment, which we'll be covering at the end of today's webinar. Okay, now we're going to run that for about 5 minutes or so. We always get some great questions, so please feel free to ask away with anything you might wish to know. All right, now the final component of that is that you can ask questions on the Q&A button anytime throughout the presentation, particularly in between the topics. But if you have another question at any point in time, please don't hesitate to ask. We'd be more than happy to answer at the end of the webinar during the Q&A session. So very warm welcome to those of you coming on now. It's an absolute pleasure. All right, so I'm going to switch off my video so you won't be able to see my face anymore. But in just a moment's time, you'll be able to see the presentation that we have for you today up on screen. All right, fantastic. So presentation should be up on screen with us now. All right, so just let me know, please, if you don't mind, before we get kicked off officially, if you can hear my voice okay, and if you can indeed see the presentation up on screen okay as well. And then I will know that we are ready to rock and ready to get kicked off on today's session. Okay, now today we're talking about 3 reasons why it's never too late to start a business. Okay, it's a very, very important topic of conversation. It's one that's going to have a big influence on many people that are looking to start a business in today's sort of day and age. Okay, now my name is Ben, for those of you just joining us now. I'm a business coach. I specialize in working with small businesses to help them achieve stability and growth. And just like many of the wonderful businesses and people that are always on these webinars, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and an absolute pleasure to be speaking you through today's presentation. Okay, so discussion points. Number 1, experience is absolutely crucial. Okay, in anything that we choose to take on as an endeavor, as an adventure, as a new venture for our business, experience always has a part to play in it. We're going to talk about why that's important in just a minute. Ease of learning. Okay, here's another big component about really establishing how we're going to work most effectively when we're running this new business. And finally, it's never been so possible. Okay, and this is a really, really big point that I want to spend a good amount of time talking with you on at the end of today's webinar and the 3rd and final segment there. Okay, so let's get started then with topic number 1. Experience is crucial. Well, thank you for the confirmation, by the way, that you can hear me and you can see me okay, or you can see the screen okay. That's great to know. Not that we ever expected to have any, but if you do experience any technical difficulties, do let us know and we'll do what we can to get you back on track pronto. Okay, so experience is crucial. Let's talk about what this means then, all right? Experience doesn't just mean having had work experience in a certain field, okay? Experience comes from all levels of life, all right? If you spent a lot of time over your years speaking with people, conversing with people, speaking to groups, speaking one-on-one, you'll have picked up very, very good, likely social skills, skills that kind of make people feel less awkward in slightly awkward situations, or you're good at navigating tricky conversation points with certain people in certain situations in certain ways, for example. Okay, and this is just one of many examples. We'll talk about some more in just a second, how work experience doesn't necessarily always have to kick in if you were starting a business. You actually have experience in lots of different areas of your life. And it's very important to remind yourself of the fact that actually I've got loads and loads of experience in loads of different industries, in loads of different ways, very much on a personal level and in a professional capacity as well, okay? Because experience doesn't just come from work. Experience comes from all walks of life. All right. Now, if you've been dealing with, managing finances in a personal capacity, then maybe you would also have skills in managing business finances, because some of those things are applicable. Okay. If you're good at budgeting, if you're good at, reducing outgoings and expenses, you're good at focusing on the money that's coming in as opposed to focusing more on the money that's going out. All of these kinds of different things, these skills, they all apply very, very heavily in business, right? So experience doesn't just mean having had work experience in a certain field. It's a very big misunderstanding that, people say, oh, well, I don't think I'd be very good at sales in a business. But then we look back and we say, well, look, have you had lots and lots of difficult conversations in your personal life? Okay, great. So if you have, you'll probably be quite well armed. And it's not to say that every sales meeting will be difficult, but people often worry that when they're put in a sales environment and they get asked a tricky question, that they're going to have a hard time navigating it. And what should actually happen in this scenario is that you rely on your experience of having dealt with a slightly tricky or difficult conversation on a personal capacity at some point in the past. And you don't even have to really consciously or proactively think about these things. Something just kicks in, muscle memory just kicks in, and it reminds you of how to deal with a difficult situation. So that's a very, very big one. Life experience applies in many different factors across running a business. Okay. Life experience is something that is absolutely invaluable. We have different things that we learn over our years. We have different ways in which we develop, we grow as people. And many of these principles are applicable to business in many different ways. Okay. Some of which we've talked about. But there's another thing to kind of bring in here, which is skills and things that you use in everyday life that are going to be very, very important. For example, natural charisma, natural energy, okay, natural ability to make people smile. It's a very, very big thing in business. Okay. Now, if you've developed a certain level of confidence because you've been doing something, anything, any number of tricky, difficult, slightly awkward sometimes things in your personal life or in a business that you had or in a job that you had or in a hobby that you have, or if you're regularly used to seeing loads and loads of people, for example, if you regularly go to personal events and you're used to walking into a room with 50 other people in it, all of these things, they all compile into valuable life experience that has an awful lot of influence when you are looking at navigating certain situations within a business. A lot of it is transferable. They're very, very transferable skills and experience. Okay. Now, here's another factor for you when you're looking at running a business. You're going to have to problem solve a lot. Okay. Now, that doesn't just mean somebody's going to present you with a very specific problem and then you're going to have to solve it. Often it means analyzing what the problems actually are and then solving them. Okay. And sometimes they're not always even recognized as a problem. Okay. There's like, we don't have enough clients. Okay. Often that is a problem or an issue, right? In some capacities, but it's not something that you would typically think of as to be problem solved. Problem solving, you would sort of figure out, well, okay, there's an unhappy client with a very specific problem. How can we solve that for them, right? So it's not always obvious what the problems are, but often it's actually good to have this experience in problem solving because we begin to highlight things that potentially wouldn't have otherwise been noticed are actually a problem. We look at it as a problem and therefore we can solve it as a problem. Okay. Instead of just sort of being stuck and saying, oh, well, I don't have enough clients. We then say, right, okay, well, what's the problem or what's the issue or what's the barrier stopping us from getting clients? Because it is an issue, and it's an issue because the business needs money. Without clients, the business can't have money. All right. So problem solving skills are something that will kick in massively there. We look at it as a problem and we solve it that way. Now, the other final component as to why, there's lots and lots and lots of things, but the other final component in topic number 1 of this webinar as to why experience is absolutely fundamentally crucial is that you may have an established network. Okay. There's very likely to be in both a professional and personal capacity, a large number of people that you know with many, many different skill sets, similarly to you, that have built their life around building these networks, building these experiences, developing these skills that they've picked up over the years. Okay. Now, with more life experience comes sometimes more awareness or, certain ability to deal with certain situations more. So if you have an established network, you can often rely on somebody that may know how to solve something that you don't, or potentially do something that you can, or you even see a collaboration opportunity in a way that nobody could have ever expected, but it sort of happened. Okay. Now, these established networks are a wonderful thing because it's such a vast array of people that you can speak with and you can benefit from. Okay. So it's a very, very big thing that you can take into account, okay, as you're progressing through your business journey. Now, let's leave that up for you for just a minute so you can jot down some notes and you can indeed ask away with any questions that you may wish to ask as well. And I will see you again in just a moment for topic number 2. All right, fantastic. So let's move on to then topic number 2 of today's webinar session, ease of learning. Okay, now let's talk about this. Let's talk about why starting a business is absolutely more than possible at this point. Okay, now everyone was new to someone. Sorry, everything was new to someone at some stage. All right, so often we kind of have this preconception of somebody that's doing very, very well, and we think, oh, well, maybe they just got lucky, or they've had loads and loads of time to do it, or they obviously just have a natural talent for it, or whatever the reason may be behind us thinking that this person, is successful and has always been successful, when a lot of the time that just isn't true. Everything was new to someone at some stage. So the best marketers that you see in the game today, they were brand new on the scene at some point in time. Okay. They either had their first job as a junior in marketing, or they decided to take it on themselves to start learning. Every talented individual that you see today, every skilled individual that you see today began building those skills from scratch at some point. Okay. Now, whether that was when they were very, very young, at a midpoint in their life, or at a later point in their life, it's a very, very good thing to understand that, look, this very concept was brand new to that person at some point in time, and they have then dedicated themselves to it to learn these skills over time and become that. Now, of course, it's fair to say that some people have a natural talent, some people have natural skill sets, all right, that comes easier to them than it does to others. All right, so let's take a professional golfer, for example. If they're competing in major tournaments, they didn't just one day decide to play in that major tournament having never played golf before. They probably started learning golf, dedicated themselves to it, got better and better and better until eventually they reached the skill level where they are now one of the best in the world. Okay, but that didn't happen to them overnight. At one point in time, golf was a brand new concept to them. Okay, so in today's day and age, there are so many new platforms coming out that are brand new, all being learned by users from scratch. Okay, let's take TikTok, for example. When that first came out, everybody was in the same position, okay? Within reason, of course. Everybody was in the same position. We all had to learn how to use it. We all had to learn why it's effective. We all had to learn how to benefit from it, what we can use it for, how we can help it benefit us, okay? Now, over the years, you now see people with enormous followings on TikTok and other social media platforms, and they've done very, very well for themselves. But this is because they have dedicated themselves to learning how the platform works. Now, granted, some of them will have pre-established sort of success on other platforms, but then you ask the same question. Well, at some point in time, did they start on that platform from scratch? They started from 0 followers, somewhere, somehow, sometime. Okay. So when these new platforms come out, what's the lesson here? Start learning it as fast as you can, because you don't know how good or how big it could be one day. All right. You might not have been able to get in on the ground floor, but it's also still way, way, way away from being too late to kind of take action and enjoy the success and the benefits that these types of things can bring you. Okay. But the absolute core lesson here is that in today's day and age, there's so many new things coming out all of the time, but we don't want to be in the mindset of, oh no, not interested, not for me. Okay. If it's something that could bring you success, something that could get you closer towards your goals, start learning it, start using it, because you don't know how far it could take you. All right. Now, with so many guides, online materials for learning, as well as in-person and digital learning, it's hard not to learn something new. All right. Now, many of us are probably learning new things every single day without even realizing it. And there's something that I love thinking about. And what that is that you don't just one day all of a sudden find success. You imagine 3 years' time, 5 years' time, 10 years' time, oh, you just sort of have this idea that something is going to switch, like a switch is just going to flick, and all of a sudden you'll be super successful and you'll be where you want to be. It's very easy to forget that it's actually the small things that we do day to day, every single day, that eventually get us towards those bigger, larger goals. Okay. Because if we don't put in the work day to day, nothing is ever going to change. Okay. Now, this is an extremely important theory, because what we have to understand is that there is no switch that's just going to randomly flick one day and we'll all of a sudden find ourselves successful. You have to study every day if you want to get better at a new skill. If you want to one day be an expert in paid advertising, you have to start now, and you have to start studying daily, or, committing to it on a regular basis at least, to make sure that you then develop those skills. If in 3 years' time you see yourself operating as an expert, okay? The work to create the bigger picture that you have in your mind, it goes into every single day. There's not some magical week where you're going to transform. There's not some magical month or even some magical year where you're just going to magically find yourself successful. It's in the small work, day to day, every single day. Okay. So with so many guides, online materials for learning, as well as in-person and digital learning, it's really genuinely hard not to learn something new. If there's something that you want to know, Google it. If there's something that you want to research, go and figure it out. Watch a video. If there's something you want to learn, take the course. Okay. There's so many guides, so much content, so much material online to learn from. Okay. Now, it's easier done in stages. Okay. Take it one day at a time. If you overwhelm yourself with everything, if you're looking at an expert or an industry leader and you say, well, I want to be doing what they're doing, but I want to do it tomorrow, you're going to overwhelm yourself, and you're going to probably, unfortunately, find yourself demotivated and not want to continue going forward. And the reason for that is because you've tried to put way too much on yourself, and you haven't necessarily realized that these things don't happen overnight. Okay. One day at a time. If you want to learn a new skill, you want to create something, focus on it one day at a time. Okay. But like we said earlier, the bigger picture is built from the day to day. All right. So that brings us to the end of topic number 2. I'll join you again in just a moment for topic number 3. Fantastic. So let's move on to topic number 3, the third and final topic of today's conversation. It's never been so possible. All right. Now, with the technology that we have on hand today, it's more possible now than ever before to launch a business. We have extremely intelligent phone devices. We have extremely intelligent computers, laptops. We have various bits of software. We have an enormous potential network of people we can speak with, engage with, interact with. We have countless resources, study materials. It's so unbelievably accessible compared to what it's ever been before. And every day, that bank of accessible material just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay. Now, with the tech that we have on hand, with the software that we have on hand, with the learning materials that we have on hand, it's genuinely more possible now than it ever has been to launch a business. Okay. You can access social media from your phone. You can talk to potentially hundreds of people at one time. Okay. Now imagine that 30 years ago. Okay. It wouldn't have been that easy, right? So just think where we are now versus where we used to be. Things have changed dramatically, making it infinitely more possible to start a business than it ever has been before. We have access to websites, we have access to the internet, we have access to social media, we have access to technology, typically as well, everyday technology like a phone. All right. But they're capable of doing such incredible things nowadays. All right. So access to phones, laptops, and remote learning, and even remote meetings. Okay. You have your phone, you have a handheld device, okay, that can surf the internet, can make phone calls, can speak with people, can access social media, potentially accessing then an audience of hundreds, if not thousands of people at any one time. It's absolutely incredible what has become possible in this day and age. And sometimes we may take that for granted, but we absolutely cannot. We have laptops, we have literal computers that we can put in bags and take with us to different locations. We can learn remotely, okay? We can learn valuable information that before we would have had to travel somewhere physically to learn, okay? We even have remote meetings now. We can meet with people all over the world from our home, okay? It's truly incredible where we've gotten to and what is actually possible. New skills are available for learning and accessible via the internet. If there's something you want to learn, if there's something you want to study, if there's something you want to develop in, all you really need to do is commit yourself to learning that, okay? If there's something that you want to learn, there's a very good chance that if you Google it, you will find something relating to that matter or subject that you want to learn, and then you can access it via the internet, again, from the comfort of your own home, okay? It truly is absolutely incredible where we are at in today's day and age. Okay. Now, consumers are open to new concepts, new products, new services. Very much the way I personally believe we have went is that we are very open to new technology, new software, new ideas, new concepts. It's very exciting, very, very dynamic world to live in. And that's an absolutely wonderful thing because in this thriving sort of digital universe, if you like, it gives everybody so much potential in this field. Everybody who's interested in digital marketing or digital growth, everybody who's in this field, it gives us all so much potential to grow to something that we possibly could have possibly never conceived possible. Okay. So that brings us to the end of topic number 3. I'm going to give us a brief pause once again, just for a minute there. Please do go ahead, ask any final questions. Please feel free to take this time as well to jot down any notes that you might wish to take, and I'll rejoin you again in just a moment's time for the recap, and then we'll run through the Q&A from today's session as well. All right, so I'll be with you again in just a moment. All right, fantastic. So let's move on now to the recap of today's session. Okay, point number 1, life experience will kick in a professional capacity. You have to just trust yourself to remember this crucial information and make sure that you can get the most from it. Number 2, one day at a time. Okay, you can't summit the mountain in an instant. You have to give everything time to grow, develop. So please take a little bit of pressure off yourself and realize it's okay to take things one day at a time. And finally, it's more possible now than it ever was. And if you take one message away from this, please take this. It's absolutely more possible now than it ever before has been. Okay. Now, let's go on to the Q&A segment. Okay, so as always, a massive thank you for taking the time to attend today's webinar session. I very much hope that you enjoyed it. If you'd like to talk to a member of our team, you can go over to iob-business.com/talk-to-us. And on this link, you'll see a calendar just like this one. You can book a call at a time that suits you. So whilst I leave that link up on screen for you there, I will go and grab your questions from today. Perfect. So thank you very much to those of you that asked questions. Please know also there's still time to ask questions if you'd like to do so. First question I have, I'm worried that if I launch a business, it will flop. All right, yeah. So that's a very common concern, and honestly, one that you can't actually overcome until you begin, learn, progress, you see success, and you'll see someone interested in your business, and that will give you the enthusiasm and the courage to go forwards. But I do understand what you mean. It's a common concern that, flop in essence, otherwise, won't progress, won't be successful, might fail. That's a very valid and common concern. But once the only way to really properly overcome this concern is, well, A, being very well prepared, but B, just getting started and, feeling and experiencing some success. All right. So I hope that helps. Great question. Thank you for asking. Next question. Learning new technology isn't something that comes easy to me. Yeah, cool. Join the club, honestly, right? It's a learning curve for everyone. And so many people are happy to help each other. And I think that's an amazing question and an amazing thing to point out because, as we were saying earlier, at some point in time, everything was new to someone, right? So if a new platform comes out, remember, we're all in the same spot. We're all, granted, some people have more experience and more of a background, but ultimately, you could think of it that way, that many of us are starting from scratch with this new platform, with this new tech, with this new thing. And we've all just got to learn as much as we can, help each other, network, collaborate, all of these wonderful things. So amazing question again. Thank you for asking. And I really hope that helps. Do I have any more questions from today? No. Okay. Looks like that might be it then. So as always, I hope you have a wonderful Wednesday. And thank you very much for taking the time to join us. I'll see you again on the next iOB Business webinar. Bye for now.